All right, welcome to Research Debrief, the podcast that bridges the gap between the fitness industry and the latest science. Luke, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Rachel.
Well, what's the research that we're going to dive into today?
Yeah, a new paper published in a journal called Healthcare. And this is a meta-analysis. So again, it's a study of all the studies on a particular topic. The title of the paper is The Effects of Concurrent Training versus Aerobic or Resistance Training Alone on Body Composition in Middle-Aged and Older Adults, Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. So what this is the paper looking at, well, what if you just did aerobic exercise or cardio? Versus what if you just did strength training? Versus what if you did both? That's the definition of concurrent training, which sounds so silly that we have a term for doing both cardio and strength training, because that's generally what people do, is they do both. But the term used in the scientific literature is concurrent training. Now, you might think, well, why do we need to do research on concurrent training? Well, there's this idea that there might be an interference effect. So the interference effect would suggest if you're really trying to maximize the benefits from strength training, it might actually negatively impact the benefits you get from your cardio, your aerobic training. And if you're really trying to maximize the benefits from your aerobic training, your cardio, it might negatively impact your ability to reap the benefits from strength training. So that is what this paper is looking at. Of course, there's different benefits that we can look at. This paper is looking at body composition. Other papers might look at things like muscle hypertrophy. Other papers might look at endurance sport performance. You and I were just talking. I just came back from Boston running the Boston Marathon. I'm interested in trying to maximize my performance in an endurance sport. So this interference effect is kind of at the center of this research around concurrent training. And we'll go one level deeper on that before we get into this paper. When we strength train, we stimulate what's called the mTOR pathway. This is just the molecular signaling, the pathway involved in stimulating increases in your muscle strength and your muscle size. mTOR pathway, that's strength training. Well, when we do endurance training, it's a different pathway. The molecular signaling here is what's called the AMPK pathway. These two pathways are different, and the thought is there might be interference in the molecular signaling if you're doing strength training while you're also trying to do aerobic exercise. So that's the focus of kind of this debate and why this paper is important. And Rachel, if you're ready for it, I can kind of jump into some of our key takeaways.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. And so I think a great starting point is their first takeaway: combining resistance and endurance training in the same plan improves aerobic fitness just as well as endurance training alone, while giving even stronger muscle and strength benefits than endurance training only. Now that's pretty obvious, right? So if you do resistance and endurance, your aerobic benefit is going to be the same. That is a really important first takeaway for us. Doing the strength training doesn't negatively impact the endurance training. And of course, if you add the strength training, you're going to get stronger. You're going to add more muscle than if you just did the endurance training. That part's obvious. Second key takeaway: compared with resistance training alone, the combined approach boosts cardiovascular fitness while matching gains in strength, power, and muscle size. So what this is saying is if you just did strength training versus if you also add the cardio, when you add the cardio, you do not negatively impact your strength, your power, or your muscle size. Now that's important. We have people walking around our health clubs right now saying, well, if you do too much cardio or if you add endurance training, you're going to minimize your gains that you see from a strength training standpoint, and that is not what this meta-analysis discovered. Now the next key takeaway: doing resistance training before endurance training might further increase the muscle growth and strength without reducing endurance improvements. Now, this is a might. So there's a little bit of research to say if you really wanted to focus on muscle strength, maybe do the strength training before you do the endurance exercise, okay? And so that would apply to a small percentage of the population who is really, really training to optimize the benefits from their strength training. Now, what we're sure is if you do the strength training first, you're probably able to perform better. You're going to be able to lift more weight or do more repetitions with a given weight. What we don't know is, does that actually lead to greater adaptation down the road? So yes, I can lift more weight if I do the strength training before I do my cardio, but does that mean I get better benefits over the next few days, next few weeks, next few months? We're not sure about that part, okay? So our takeaway there is the timing probably doesn't matter for strength and cardio adaptations. If you're going to perform, if you're going to show how much weight you can lift for one rep, probably do the strength training first. Now, the exception to this is calorie expenditure. If you want to burn more calories from your strength or your cardio, the timing does matter. And the review there says you just shouldn't do them in close proximity. Now, this is really interesting. So when we do strength training and when we do cardio together in one workout, or when they're back to back right next to each other, we actually don't have an increase in our metabolic rate following that workout. So metabolic rate is just how many calories you're burning when you're not working out. Well, if we do a strength training workout, we burn more calories afterwards. If we do a strength training and cardio workout together, we don't burn more calories afterwards. The reason this is noteworthy is there's a lot of people doing a class that combines strength and cardio, and if we interviewed them as they were walking out of class, hey, what was your objective? What are you trying to accomplish? I think many of those participants would say, well, I'm trying to burn more calories. They actually selected a form of exercise that's been proven to not burn more calories afterwards. Now, again, we already said this, we should do strength training and we should do cardio, but if we want to get the metabolic rate benefit, the calorie burning benefit, they should be time separated by a number of hours. That would mean we would do some strength training in the morning, we would do cardio at lunch, okay? Or we'd do some cardio in the morning, we would do strength training at lunch. Now, if you don't care about metabolic rate and you just want to get stronger and add lean muscle tissue, reap all the benefits from strength training and enhance your cardiovascular fitness, then you can do both combined, that's fine. So we should just think about that. If we're doing a class of any kind, the combined strength and cardio, we cannot market this is a great way to boost metabolism and burn more calories, because we're pretty clear that that is not the case.
I think this is an important point that you bring up is identifying the goal of the member. And is what they're doing actually supporting that goal? Because I think we do a lot of blanket statements in the industry that are inaccurate and may actually not support our members' ultimate goals.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's the specific, what are you trying to accomplish? Now, this is interesting research that this applies, this concurrent training, to almost every age group that we have looked at. So meta-analysis on this topic with older adults found that there was no interference effect. Your aerobic exercise doesn't negatively impact your strength doesn't negatively impact your cardio. So here's maybe the powerful kind of take-home message. Adding cardio to your strength further improves your cardio. Okay, we want that. Adding cardio to your strength doesn't mitigate your muscular improvements that you're getting from your strength. And I think we can say that this interference effect that we're starting to hear more about on social media is probably overstated. The one caveat, there's always a caveat of some kind, is maybe the volume of exercise. So I said I was just at the Boston Marathon. There's elite level marathoners that are running in their training 100 miles a week or 120 miles a week. Let's be clear, we just don't have research on if you ran 120 miles a week, that's a lot of cardio. How would that impact the benefits from your strength training? These studies are just not touching on that. They're touching on people that are doing a normal volume of cardio, a normal volume of strength training. But I think this is
great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's our members.
Relevant to all of our members, absolutely. Yeah.